connect, serve, and grow is what you can expect at the House of Reconciliation. Leadership, community, education, wellness, and participation is part of our plan for your spiritual growth and success. Family and faith is a core value for the House of Reconciliation, working to help people find their purpose. Want to make an impact in the kingdom? Ready to tap into your future? Meet us at the House Sundays with Pastor Reginald Campbell, www.houseofreconciliation.org.
Good morning and welcome into another edition of Successful Living. We're here at the House of Reconciliation in Greenville, and it's raining outside this morning, so I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining. I always look at the rain as washing something out, so something can be washed in, as well as bringing to life something that may have been dormant. I want to take this opportunity to share with you what the House of Reconciliation is all about. Welcome in our Greenwood campus and to our virtual campus and to our global connections. I was looking at, I was trying to relax and saw a trip up in Norway, a 14-day cruise. I said, man, I like to go and just be away from everything in Norway. But I don't know if I can get away for like a half a month. Maybe I'll play sick. But it's a beautiful country. We thank all of those that are in South Africa, those that are in Liberia, Antigua, and Haiti, and the Bahamas, and those that are crossing. Even our local, Powdersville, Simpsonville, Malden, also easily. We are very happy and ecstatic that you're a part of our broadcast and watch our broadcast. Anytime that you're interested in service, we do that every Sunday morning here at 1427 Suite E, Launch Road. That is at 8:30 a.m. We're normally here for about an hour. I spoke with a couple of people, and I would love for your help and support. If I can help find a praise and worship leader or a musician or both that can come in for about 30 minutes. I know that you're probably associated with another facility, another house of worship, but if you can give me 15 minutes of praise and worship, one or two songs, wonderful musician, that'd be great for our early broadcast. If you're in the Greenwood, Abbeville area, Donaldson, Hodges, also Lawrence and Clinton, we will be there at 10:45. I believe today we have tea and coffee that begins at 10:30 a.m. this morning. If you want to be there just to do fellowship, even if you're going to your own house of worship, please stop by, join us there for tea and coffee. That's this morning at 10:45. We appreciate to just have the fellowship with you. And then we'll go into praise and worship right around 11. We're looking for the same thing at the Greenwood campus. So this morning we're going to have kind of a question and answer, and I will share with you what we are doing. So there was a question that came about. I think it got kind of thick and deep. Let me read this part. We were talking about self-worth. And in self-worth, we got down to a point where it kind of got sticky. Let me go back up here to the first part. All right, it says how to build self-worth. The first step in building self-worth is to stop comparing yourself to others and evaluating your every move. In other words, you need to challenge your critical inner voice. Everyone has one. This inner voice is associated with two characters, your adversary and the agitator. I talked some time ago about, is it God, is it me, or is it the adversary? And so what happens is when the critical voice, and I did a series called Voice Within a Voice. This critical voice can do tremendous damage to your present. If it can cancel your present, it can undo your future. Because the inner voice is still engaged with your past. If you were to cancel it, it has to die or go dormant. It has been so attached to you for so long that you consider it to be your conscience. And what it is the broken pieces of a broken window that's still sticking in you. So it says the critical voice, The critical inner voice is like a nasty coach. Remember, we talked about violent coaching. It's like a nasty coach in our heads. See, you can have the ability, you can have the gifts, you can have everything in line, and you can talk yourself right out of your next move. It says, in our heads that constantly nags us with destructive thoughts toward ourselves and others. There are people who literally are battling in their head against themselves. And all you have to do is look at them. And you can wave. And because that inner voice is in their head, they'll have an attitude with you. Part of that is because an individual does not want to take responsibility for their actions. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always what they didn't do, what they should have done. The question that I say to people, what have you done and what could you do for yourself? When do you take ownership of the direction of your life? This is when I tell parents, at some point you have to raise your kids. And you have to hold them accountable. If you always jump out there, if you always petting them every time they fall, and you're always telling them, all these things, nobody in life is going to do that. And so you will always be a mother, but at some point you have to be a parent. And so then we're still babying someone when it's really the optical course of life. It's trying to reshape them. But because of the nasty voices in daddy's head, mama's head, grandma's head, people put out all of this. It's like a bad breath moment. They put out all this negativity. And it doesn't choke you for the moment. It continues to drown you because it gets in your head. Here's what it says. This internal dialogue of critical thought or inner voice undermines our sense of self-worth and even leads to self-destruction. And I think this is where you had a question, because I think I'm going to work with it right there. And it creates manipulative behavior. You had a question?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You said bitterness and anger are blockers to creativity and peace.
Mm-hmm.
What other blockers are there to creativity and peace?
What other blockers are there outside of bitterness and what?
Anger.
And anger. Procrastination. I asked him to go out, and I know this looked like weed, so if you didn't get here, you can't smoke with us. But every human that has been born on earth, God brought you here with a little package. And in this package is your dreams, your ideas, your creativity. And what the enemy does is causes an individual to procrastinate, because there's some things you have to plant at 10. Some things you have to plant at 15. Some things you have to plant at 17. Some things you have to plant at 20 and go on. And if they're never planted, then you're not fulfilling what God has called you to. Procrastination. Because we go back to the theory of Noah lived 900 years, I believe Adam did. But then over time, the life expectancy of humanity is 73 years. Some seeds that God has given you and I should have been planted years ago. Now they will be coming into fruition. It's like we just had a brief shower. If there was any flowers that were planted, they have received what natural water cannot give them from the faucet. See, when God pours into you, he pours into you what man can't give you. But if our appetite is for what man says, and we live and our life hinges on the thoughts and the acceptance of man, we're missing the most important ingredients that come from God. So it goes back to self-sabotaging. And what else hinders us? It's who we listen to. God, when he puts this into you, and if you go back to Genesis 2 and 6, I believe, it talks about there was a mist that came up out of the earth, which was water. And he designed humanity out of that. So every now and then, God has to reign in your life. There has to be thunder. There has to be lightning. Some things need to be shocked and electrocuted out of your life. God, and that's why the rain comes and it runs, and there's a quick rain, then there's a slow rain, then there's a steady rain, then there's a heavy rain. And we're not mentally or spiritually prepared, because if we're made from this, there are molecules that are in this that only will react when the certain DNA from natural water activates it. We're chasing things that leave us empty. We're telling people off because it makes us feel better, but it doesn't make us progress. So here's what happens. This is a writing from Dr. Lisa Firestone. Voices within the voice, voices in my head. We have a critical voice. We have a critical inner voice which acts like a cruel coach in our head that tells us we are worthless and undeserving of happiness. How many people are self-sabotaging themselves every day because of what's going on in their head? Because of failed support, lack of self-confidence. So then guess what? Here comes the adversary. Here comes the agitator. You know what they offer you? Material things, clothes and shoes and designer names, and there's nothing wrong with them. They offer you another person. Why would two afflicted people get together? Neither one of them can help each other. I've got a broke arm, you've got a broke leg. What good can we do each other? Is it God? Is it me? Is it the adversary? So here's what she says. I'll go back up to this. How to build self-worth. Self-worth versus self-esteem. Although self-worth is often used as a synonym for self-esteem, Dr. Lisa Firestone believes that self-worth should be less about measuring yourself based on external actions. Everybody's cool when they're winning. Do you know what happens? When you're winning, you're not learning. Go ahead. I know we got stuck on that one. Go ahead. Ask me a question. Ask me why. When a flower blooms, and most pictures that you and I see, especially going into Mother's Day, you will see this beautiful flower. That's it. After that moment is death. Do you want to peak so quick that there's nothing else to come? Most people are focused on what they have today and the attention they have today, and they're missing the other little buds that are around in their life that needs to be germinated. So you focus on that one big flower, and it gives you maybe 5-7 days, and then it dissolves. So if that flower was your moment, where do you go after that? That is a trap of immediate gratification. We were designed by God for delayed gratification. Because there's some things you literally have to sow into, and it takes time in order for them to manifest. So when you get the brief shower that we just had, that is God sending the ingredients that you need. And many times when God is sending you and I the ingredients that we need, it's not in our timing. My hair is going to get messed up. It's going to get humidity. My shoes, I got on my shoes. It's all about us. And we are missing the critical information about the moment. In other words, self-worth is about who you are and not about what you do. It's about who you are in God, who you are in life, who you are to your family. What are your roles and your responsibility? And with God, when he sent every one of us, he put a little package in us. Everyone that's born, he put a little package in you of seeds. And we're so focused on the now that we're not thinking about the hereafter, the eternal spirit. And so man had two things. One, he was a clay dummy until God breathed into him. And when God breathed into him, it solidified him to be above the animals. Because then it says, man became a living soul. So God has an eternal investment in you. I'm going to go up and read a couple things. Here is how most people think. This is the way I am. But it's not working. We talked about God is nosy. Why is he meddling in my life? He has an eternal investment in you. He put a package in you. You and I were his greatest and best creation. Of all the angels and all the gifts that were passed out through all the galaxies, God put a little bit of himself in you. And the trouble that you're having is the God part. The you part is in controversy with the God part. Paul said, when I would do good, evil was pregnant. And when we will not submit to God, it falls to this category, stubborn behavior. Now here's what's tough. See, because why is he meddling in my life? He put an eternal investment in you. He had an angel called Lucifer who did not follow the credence of God. He wanted to do it his way. He created Adam and Eve, and they wanted to do it their way. He created you and I, and what's our objective? Do it our way. And then we get offended with God because we're like, hey, you're supposed to be working for me. And God's saying, you didn't see the memo. You're supposed to be working for me. So we're in a power struggle with God. And here's what happens. It's not money that fixes a situation and prevents it from happening again. Here is where we struggle. It's new information and a new learned behavior. Your greatest challenge isn't who you turn around. Your greatest challenge is, will you turn around? Your greatest challenge isn't directing someone else. Your greatest challenge is, will you be directed by the Spirit of God that he's placed in you? And he placed so much in you and I that he even said, I'll do it twice. I created you, but I love you so much, I'm willing to die for you. And give you a second chance to pull yourself together. Because one of the things about life, it'll show you all of your flaws. But the difference in the Spirit will show you your future. The problem we have is we don't like the bumps in the road. We don't like the bumps in the road. We want a day, we want a perfect day. As long as humanity exists on earth, there will be no perfect day in humanity. But here's what the Bible says. This is a day. So why are you so trapped by humanity? If the Lord made today, how many of us purchase our own breath? So what's with the stinking attitudes? What's with the moves? What's if this isn't, then what's hindering you from enjoying this day? Because he's given you a gift that is so common we don't appreciate it, and that's the ability to breathe. And we're so frustrated with things that we're not breathing. I have been trying to get to the information about the number 20 of redemption and the number 22 about breath and life. This is a year you're supposed to be breathing, but you can't breathe if you can't exhale. You have to breathe. Why is he meddling? Simple. This is gonna be interesting because he can make a difference in your life. Why? Because he knows your DNA and he's your creator. The problem is we're talking at God and we're not talking with God. We're trying to guide our own future. And anytime that we're trying to guide our own future, we're not walking by faith. Faith does not come by sight. Faith does not come by things. And we have to understand to be spiritually strong. That's our most weakest link. It's growing spiritually. We think things, we think people, we think association. Things make the flesh feel good, but it doesn't answer the call of eternity. Things make the flesh feel good, but it doesn't answer the call of eternity. And God has put a time clock on every one of us. Each one of us, as we wear a watch, each one of us is on the clock with God. So here's what it says. The adversary and the agitator is there to tell us to keep going by challenging us with obstacles. You cannot grow until you can learn how to stand up for what's right. Here's the problem. This is going to be a little tight. You know the scripture that says, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I feel no evil. Listen to this. When we can stop living through the shadow of our past. Let me tell you what happens. Because of our adversary and agitator, we become unglued when we hear or see trouble. And when we hear and see trouble, it sets off a chemical in our brain of defense. When we really should open up to worship. Ask me why. To get revelation and understanding and divine support. To get revelation, understanding, and divine support. When you are running into an obstacle, instead of allowing the cortisol in your mind to dissolve your brain with negativity, we should what? Worship. To do what? To get revelation. To do what? Y'all just missed the whole moment, didn't you? Creativity. When we are met with an obstacle, instead of trusting my own intellect, I should go into worship to get support, to get revelation, and to birth creativity. Because this is not an obstacle that you created. This is an obstacle for you to not see the revelation. And so you're mad at the problem, but you have no solution. So the easy solution is a knee-jerk reaction. The spiritual solution is to take a moment, read a scripture, quote a scripture, worship God, and say, Lord, I need direction from here. Because by seeking God, you can control the cortisol that goes on in the mind and that tells you all this negative stuff, and then here come the band of negativity. So now, here's what happens. We become unglued when we hear and see trouble. When we can stop living through the shadow of pain. Stop living through the shadow of your past. What does that mean? Because every time something happens, mentally, in self-worth, you reflect to your last broken moment. You reflect. So what tool do you use? Do you use worship? Do you use the power of revelation? Do you use creativity? Or do you use what you used the last time? Can I take you and tell you why? Let me pull this up real quick. Because this is, I wouldn't call it a scatterbrain. This coach, the inner coach, is shaped from a painful childhood experience and critical attitudes we were exposed to early in life, as well as feeling our parents had about themselves. See, much of our issues is not our issues. It's what we have seen and adopted. And if we had a violent coach at home, if we had a non-communicative father, if we had an over-controlling mother, then we assume as a kid this is the way of life. I'll say it again. This type of coach is shaped from a painful childhood experience and a critical attitudes we were exposed to early. So if dad came in and yelled at mom, if he didn't have respect for women and didn't want women to work and have a voice or anything to say, if your mother didn't grow up with a kind, loving father, if you never saw your father hug your mother, never saw your father give flowers, that's probably why you don't hug and give flowers today. Many of us are what we have seen, not what we have learned. This is why the late founder pastor said nobody should be yelling in this house. If you grow up in a house where everybody's talking, I grew up in that kind of house, where everybody tries to out-talk everybody. So it gets louder and louder and louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. And we're in the same room, and two people 3 feet from each other talking at the top of their lungs. What do you think you're going to do? Can I make it plain? If you talk to someone from manufacturing, they normally talk loud. Say that again, because I know somebody about to get pissed off at me. If you talk to somebody, yeah, we going over there, yeah, Billy down the hall, yeah, we going to the restroom, yeah, that's where Cletus at, yeah. You say what? We going to get something to eat, yeah, okay. You're like, dude, come right here. And a loud woman, I don't know. She cute to somebody. Yeah, what's up? Yeah. Because they're around noise all the time, even when they eat lunch. Yeah, you say what? You say what? Georgia had 15. Yeah, Georgia had 15 to go to the NFL. Yeah. What Alabama gonna do? I don't know. So then when they come into a regular convenience store, you're like, hey, hi, Tom. Hey, Bob. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Why? They still in the tone of the plant. How many of us are still in the same tone of our childhood? Because if you grow up and you're neglected, then you're going to be the one that's always trying to get attention. If you grow up and you're the one that received all attention, you pissed off when everybody else get attention. Come on. Y'all don't want this, don't you? We about to go. You want me to go get a little Reggie? You want me to spin the chair and bring little Reggie? How you doing today? The little Reggie. How you doing? How your mama doing? Okay. I had to break the ice because like y'all was really getting to it. Here's the thing. This type of coaching, this type of coaching is a coach of self-destructive and it has multiple layers of dysfunctional behavior. Because the writer says this is a nasty coach. So you ask the question, what were some of the other things that keep us away? It's the nasty coach in our head. We just can't be a team when it's convenient for you. We have to be a team come rain, sleet, or shine. We have to be. And the thing about a team and about a relationship with God, you can't keep score. Can y'all let me, can I teach you for me? You see, that's not a team. That's individuals comparing themselves. And Dr. Lisa Firestone says one of the worst things you can do is compare yourself to other people. And compare what you've done to what other people did or didn't do to make yourself feel better about yourself. You can't do that. That's not team. Because working together is about not counting what was done, but focusing on what needs to be done. Have you ever met anybody who always bring up your past? So here's the thing, and if you're a writer, write this. Critical inner voice. It comes out of the flesh. It comes out of the flesh. This is why when it wrote, it says this type of coach is shaped from a painful childhood experience. I can say this and own it. My father has a very, very rough voice. Very intimidating voice. Really sounds like a bulldog. And he yells. And he tries to control things with his voice. I raised 2 daughters. Tried to anyway. I never raised my voice at them. Now, I didn't mean I didn't want to kill them. But I didn't want them to think that whatever man comes in their life, it's okay to yell at them. So I had to learn some self-control. And the former pastor, the late Dr. S.L. Campbell, said, no one should be yelling in the house, only if the house is on fire. Because I'm going to say this to you, and if you allow me to work with you a minute, this is hard on everybody. You're assigned to build a culture out of broken pieces. And the only thing that can rightly divide your experience is the word of truth. Because we grew up thinking my grandmother, my father, my mother were heroes. And they didn't do any wrong. Until you engage in society and you find out things are not the way that happened at mama's house. And can I give you an example? Your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend can crack eggs. But if you come from a house that wash eggs, you're going to be in the kitchen fussing over he didn't wash the eggs. You nasty. That come out of a chicken butt. And you didn't wash that egg. And I ain't eating that egg. Because where you come from, they wash the egg. But where you at, she or he didn't come from washing the egg. Hello? You're used to putting milk in the refrigerator. They're used to putting milk in the cabinet. Y'all in the kitchen. Somebody must be having a flashback. After all the wedding vows and now y'all about to split over because she sleep in the middle of the bed and you sleep on the edge of the bed, and there's a problem because you used to your brothers and sisters all pile up in one bed with you, and now she finally got space, so she's sleeping on her end and you feeling some kind of way because you're used to people sleeping on top of you. So y'all get up in the morning. Am I making sense? Now, as the old church would say, now that we have your attention, let us go into the word of the Lord. So this type of our past, and let me give you this for those who are writers. We have to live what we have should not be what we have learned. That's a little odd. What we have lived should not be what we have learned. Remember, I used to say to you, your eyes are fooling you. Your ears are misinforming you. Because a lot of what you see is a lot of what you expect and demand. And oftentimes what you and I have seen is not the appropriate structure moving forward. What we have learned should be what we now live. So I've learned now to embrace your indifference. Do you know what that means? Quit trying to change people. Quit trying to change people. I'll say it again. What we have lived should not be what we have learned. See, when you start to grow, it's an unfamiliar territory. What we have learned. So I realize that everybody doesn't wash the eggs. So I shouldn't be all bent out of shape and posting it on social media because he or she or they didn't wash the chicken eggs that came out of the chicken butt. I shouldn't be falling apart. Because when I learn that they do wash the eggs when they come down, and the yolk and the whitening is protected by the covering, I shouldn't be having a tizzy fit. This type of inner voice coaching is shaped from a painful childhood experience and critical attitudes we were exposed to early in life. If you want something to go crooked, don't do anything to it while it's young. It'll go crooked on its own. If you want something to grow straight, you have to put in structure. And the parent and everybody has to continue to learn for it to progress correctly. So here's the thing. What we were exposed to early in life, as we are filling our parents with what we are dealing with, how our parents felt about themselves. Now I'm going to say this in close. Most of us that are here, maybe not the millennials and after that, but most of us that are on the outskirts of baby boomers, our parents grew up in oppression and depression and segregation, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, or whatever. So what they dealt with every day eventually had to come home. And even if they faked it, they still had to deal with it. What do you mean? Male, female, inequality in wages, inequality in benefits. When I came up, I didn't know I was poor. Had on a little raggedy t-shirt, standing at a little raggedy fence, playing in the dirt. I didn't think that was poor. I just thought that was life. Eating bologna, I didn't think that was poor. Eating Spam, I didn't think that was poor. Stop that face. Eating little vinyl sauce, I didn't think that was poor. That was a meal. That was a meal. That was a meal to fill your. I didn't think, eating peanut butter and jelly every day, I thought that was on top of the world. I didn't know nothing about having a turkey sandwich on rye bread, on marble bread. I didn't grow up with that. So we have to learn that oftentimes what we saw our parents do was the best they could do. They didn't have access the way that you have access today. You see what I mean? And some of us are still trying to live what daddy didn't do. Some of us are trying to live what mama didn't do. Some of us were raised by our grandparents and we're trying to live what grandma didn't do and grandpa didn't do. Can't do it. You got to live for your assignment. And the rain and the word of God should be washing away and chipping away at all those things that are holding you back. Now, don't try to meet me in the parking lot and try to get some of my weed. Holding you back from your growth. So you and I will be better supporters of children, grandchildren, and better people. And back in that time, a lot of times there was very little interaction because of stigma. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. And here's one thing that's interesting. Back then, the standards were a lot higher. We cared a lot about how we looked and dressed and looked professional in education. And now, the time that education is available in many instances, certain levels of education is free. There are people that died for people to vote. And we have people that are not even interested in being a part of, local, state, national. Because they don't want to be involved, but everybody's affected. I watched some people yesterday. Was at a gas station on the high end side of town. That's what some people say. And the trash can was right there, but yet they took the trash and threw it on the ground. You can't complain about your situation when you won't stand up and own your situation and better yourself. What does that mean? God placed us here because there are some brothers and sisters and there are some people that are going to run afoul. But just because they ran afoul, why don't we be the example of doing it right? Why don't we care for Mother Earth? Instead of being self-absorbed. God bless you. I'll see you soon.